Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into the damp, blistered shoes of a woman whose entire life revolves around someone else's undergarments. That's right, you're a washerwoman for the queen. You wake not to birdsong or gentle sunlight, but to the hiss of steam and the overwhelming stench of half wet linen. Your hands already ache, and you haven't even stood up yet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see the sleepy little laundry pile we've gathered from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake in royal laundry hell. The mattress beneath you, if you can call it that, is more burlap than bed, stuffed with straw, occasionally mice, and always a few mysteries. Your blanket smells like lye, onions, and damp dog, which is impressive, considering no dogs are allowed in the quarters. But then again, neither is dignity. And that didn't stop you either. Your fingers are already stiff. That's because you fell asleep last night, with them wrapped around a wooden paddle. You don't dream anymore. You just briefly power down. And when you do open your eyes, it's still dark, because washerwomen start before the castle cockerel does. That poor bird. You slide your feet into your shoes. They're not left or right, just wet. You tie your apron on top of yesterday's dress because no one has the time or spare cloth to change before 9 p.m., and your first inhale of the day is a warm note of mildew, coal smoke, and someone else's lavender oil. The lavender doesn't help. Outside, it's cold enough to turn your breath into clouds, and hot enough inside the washroom to boil your eyebrows clean off. You trudge barefoot for speed, through a courtyard cobbled with puddles and pigeon opinions, toward a building where the queen's linens are treated with more respect than human beings. Inside the washhouse, steam hangs thick in the air. Your lungs get their morning exfoliation just walking through the door. The cauldrons are already bubbling, huge iron beasts that belch, spit, and seethe like someone gave Mount Vesuvius a caffeine addiction. You pick up a rod and start stirring. This isn't gentle. It's not what modern people imagine when they hear the word laundry. There's no calm jazz music, no citrus detergent pods, no folding to the rhythm of lo-fi beats. This is medieval cardio, with weaponized steam. You stir boiling cloth like a witch at her cauldron, only instead of frogs and spells, it's underskirts and responsibility. You're scrubbing the queen's bedding today, not just sheets. Oh no. Pillowcases, embroidered hem covers, even the frilly lace sleeve guards for her nightgowns. She sweats, apparently, like a mortal, which is disappointing. And the stains. Sweet merciful saints, the stains. Nobody warns you that royalty leaks so creatively. One splash of rouge, and you're scrubbing for your job. One brown smudge, origin undetermined, and it's your fault, obviously. The queen never perspires, she glistens. Historians still argue whether the average Tudor monarch had access to deodorant or simply hoped for breezes. The water in the basin is opaque now, like stew, but with none of the warmth or hope, just floating rags and the ghost of yesterday's lavender. You beat the cloth rhythmically against a stone slab. It's oddly soothing, therapeutic even. If your therapist was a granite block and your issues were embedded in 800 thread count French linen, you're not alone, of course. There's Marjorie to your left, suspiciously quiet this morning. Either she's plotting your demise or has finally gone deaf. Both are viable outcomes. And to your right is Agnes, who is 50% elbow and 100% judgment. She inspects lace like it's a crime scene and somehow always finds fault. You once ironed a chemise so well it could stand up by itself, and she still tissed. Too smug, she said. The head laundress enters. Her name is Mistress Blight, which is both appropriate and suspiciously botanical. She smells of starch and moral superiority. She carries a clipboard, which is not for writing, it's for hitting. Mistress Blight barks out orders. Today, the Queen is returning from a 6-day festival of vernal equinox healing, which sounds spiritual, but mostly means she partied in velvet until the carpets revolted. And now, you must pay the price. 30 gowns, 12 corsets, 6 ceremonial towels, and one baffling item that looks like a handkerchief, but is labeled knee veil. Key Historians still argue whether this was a fashion item or just a royal prank. You haul, scrub, wring, and wrangle. And somewhere between the third corset and the fifth lace collar, you find a small, secret victory. A sliver of time where your muscles move automatically and your brain floats just above your skull. You forget the blisters. You forget the steam burns. You even forget that your stomach hasn't made a hopeful noise since Tuesday. In that moment, you are the queen of your own small kingdom, one of boiling pots, soap lumps, and soggy royal bloomers, until the copper tub explodes. Well, not explodes, more like violently overflows because someone, Agnes, fed it too many bed skirts. The hot flood scalds your ankles. You scream. No one hears. Marjorie finally smirks. The air smells like wool, defeat, and betrayal. You wring out the hem of a nightgown so sheer it could double as a ghost, and for a second, you wonder what it would feel like to just disappear. Just dissolve into steam and waft away. But no, you're still here, still holding someone else's dignity in both hands. And the day is only just beginning. You're still damp from the knees down, and now your shifts sticking to your thighs like some clingy ex who can't take a hint. Welcome to your next task, scrubbing the secrets out of silk. Royal garments are not made for practicality. They're made for drama, for entrances, for tossing aside just so someone else, you, can spend 6 hours wondering if this deep purple stain is wine, ink, or the queen's pomegranate face. Mask again. She insists it's rejuvenating. You suspect it's fermented regret. Today you're working on her ceremonial overgown. It weighs approximately one bad decision shy of a horse. It's embroidered with golden thread, some pearls, and what looks suspiciously like dragon scales, but is probably just stiff brocade with an attitude. Silk is a cruel mistress. Too cold, it shrivels. Too hot, it blisters like a lobster. Too much soap, it weeps dye like a poet. Not enough soap? Well, now it smells like fear and banquet cheese. There's a reason your left eye twitches every time someone says delicates. You lay it flat, gently, like a patient on an operating table. One wrong move, and this royal relic could dissolve faster than the queen's last marriage. And so begins the dance of patience. Warm, not hot water. Soap you made by hand from ash and lard. A gentle cloth, a steady hand, and the silent, ever-present knowledge that if you damage this one-of-a-kind garment, you will absolutely be blamed, publicly, in verse. There's a superstition in the laundry hall. Never wash silk when you're angry. It listens. It reacts. It wrinkles in protest, or worse, tears like your soul during week-long feast cleanup. You take a breath and begin. Each delicate fold hides secrets. A trace of perfume here, a loose thread there, a spot of wax, likely from the queen's midnight candle reading habit. You try not to imagine her spilling jam in this gown while cooing at falcons. That makes it harder to care when your knuckles are bleeding from the embroidery floss. The silk soaks like it's being baptized, and you murmur a little prayer to Saint Huna, patroness of washerwomen. Historians still debate if she existed or if she was just someone's very convenient excuse for not scrubbing their own socks. Either way, you cling to her like lather on lace. In the corner, a younger girl, Alice, is working on underthings. The Queen's underthings. They are deceptively innocent looking. White linen, fine stitching, tiny bows. But oh, the pressure. One misplaced pin tuck, and you're out forever. You once saw a girl dismissed for misironing a corset ribbon. No warning, no final paycheck, just a stiff nod and a guard escort. She cried into a basket of handkerchiefs. And yes, she had to finish folding them first. You glance over to see if Alice is coping. Her brow is furrowed like a year-old turnip. That's either determination or panic. Hard to tell. Back to your silk. You blot the wet gown with a clean cloth. Not your sleeve this time. Progress. You lay it across the drying frame, suspended like a saint's relic, and set it near, but not too near, the fire. You've seen what happens when royal clothes meet open flame. The smell alone takes days to scrub out. Meanwhile, the head laundress reappears. Mistress Blight has found a smudge on the Queen's riding cloak. Mysterious in origin, she declares, like a murder detective. She holds it out like a dirty handkerchief of doom. You take it. You don't argue. You just nod and murmur, of course, like someone agreeing to clean up after a royal swan. That stain? You know what it is. It's gooseberry jam from the Queen's afternoon picnic, the one she had in the rose garden, on the chaise that was too drafty, despite being lined with 7 pillows. You know, because you laundered the pillows afterward. They still smell like fruit and complaint. But no one wants explanations, just results. So you reheat the soap brick, dip the cloth, and whisper to the stain like you're negotiating with a criminal. The cloak is velvet, which means it soaks everything like a toddler with a juice box. You press, dab, curse under your breath, and do not breathe too hard. Finally it lifts, not perfectly, but enough. You present it to Mistress Blight, who inspects it with the intensity of a hawk looking for flaws in your soul. She grunts, which, from her, is a glowing review. You've survived silk. For now. Of course, the day is still young. You look around and realize you haven't eaten since... Actually, you're not sure. A crust of bread sometime yesterday? A corner of cold porridge when no one was looking? Your stomach rumbles, loudly. Agnes snorts. Feeding time, she says. You respond by flicking a bit of soap foam in her direction. She pretends not to see it. Behind you, the steam keeps rising. It never stops. Not really. You once tried counting how many items of clothing you washed in a week. You gave up around 432. And that was just shifts. You've stopped thinking in terms of days and started measuring time in how many royal drawers until I die. At this point, your hands are no longer hands. They are pink sponges with calluses. The Queen's garments are finer than your own skin, and when you dream, if you dream, it's of never seeing another silk hem again. But for now, the next gown awaits. And you? You pick up your brush. You pick up your rag. And you keep going. Because if anyone asks, you're not exhausted. You're just glistening. You've barely finished rewrapping the velvet cloak in linen when Mistress Blight slams open the storeroom door with the energy of a storm that's just learned how to walk. She's holding a tall iron pail. Steam trails behind her, like the dramatic entrance of a ghost. A hot, boiling, very practical ghost. "Tub's ready," she says. "That's it. That's the warning." You trudge over, arms heavy with a stack of sheets, so high it threatens to smother your nose in ruffled monogramming. These are the Queen's bed linens, embroidered, scented, and stained with evidence of royal lounging, and each one weighs as much as a wet sheep. The copper cauldron, your mortal enemy and closest co-worker, is already frothing like an overzealous witch's brew. You set the linens on the edge of the tub. There's a moment's hesitation, because what you're about to do is madness. Again, you plunge your hands in. The water is so hot, your soul might be melting first. You bite your tongue. You always do. Swearing gets you three things: a scolding, a scalding, and a demotion to undergutter sock detail, which no one survives twice. The steam wraps around your face like an angry scarf. Your knuckles turn pink, then red, then disappear entirely under the layers of suds and shame. You stir the linens gently, as trained, keeping them moving in a slow, smooth figure eight. Someone once told you this motion is to ease the tension in the fibers. You suspect it's mostly to make your wrists cry, "Uncle." The soap, handmade from last month's ash pile and some questionable fat, bubbles thick and slow. It smells faintly of smoke, faintly of sheep, and overwhelmingly like something you should not be inhaling this deeply. You reach for your paddle, a heavy plank with a handle carved out of oak, polished smooth by decades of desperate women just like you, and begin pressing the linens down into the water. It's not stirring, it's wrestling. A silent, wet, blister-making arm wrestle with the past 72 hours of royal tossing and turning. Sometimes you wonder, how does one woman get so many bed sheets so catastrophically dirty? Historians still argue whether medieval nobility sweated more than peasants due to heavier clothing or sheer royal stubbornness. Either way, you know the truth. The Queen's sheets are always in distress. As you push the fabric deeper into the bubbling tub, a drop of water jumps from the edge and lands directly on your upper lip. It sizzles. You may now smell like pork. The water shows no remorse. Beside you, Agnes has moved on to wringing out towels. Her arms bulge. You suspect she's been stealing rations? No one should be that muscled from cotton alone. Wringing is its own nightmare. You lift a sheet from the cauldron, dripping, heavy, and steaming, like it has something to confess. You double it over your forearms, then twist. Water pours out, dark with secrets. Your wrists scream. Your shoulders tingle in protest. Your blouse sticks to your back, like it's trying to return to the womb. This part is crucial. Not wringing properly means mildew, and mildew means sniffing every single corner of the sheet before folding. Under Mistress Blight's unforgiving nose. You failed that test before. You still have flashbacks. Once wrung, the linens are hung. The drying lines are outdoors today. Of course they are, because it rained last night, and nothing quite tests your optimism like sun-drying 10 royal bed sheets in 65% humidity and a breeze that smells suspiciously of goat. You carry the steaming bundles across the courtyard like a slow-motion parade of damp despair. The lines are already sagging under the weight of 10 morning shifts worth of laundry. You wedge in your batch. The sheet flaps. It hits you square in the face like a passive-aggressive curtain. You pause, sheet still in hand, and take a moment to appreciate the absurdity of your life. You, who once thought you'd become a seamstress, or maybe even a tutor if the stars aligned, are now wrestling 15-foot linen monsters that have seen more royal drama than the castle gossip. Behind you, a younger girl drops a pile of lace into the mud. You hear a sharp gasp, the sound of immediate regret, and then a wet slap. She's sitting in the puddle now. Her apron is ruined. She'll need to start that batch over. You sigh sympathetically. That was you 2 years ago. That's still you on Tuesdays. You make your way back to the tubs. This time, it's towels and napkins, which sounds easier. It's not. Royal napkins are starched to the point of violence. Folding them into their official swan formation is a task so delicate it may one day replace surgery as the world's most precise art. You take a break, just for a moment near the fire. You hold your palms towards the coals. They're red, wrinkled, permanently damp, like prunes that never got to be fruit. You look around the wash house and see your fellow soldiers in this never-ending, frothy war. You nod to Marjorie. She nods back. There's a mutual understanding that if either of you ever marries into royalty, you'll abolish silk entirely. Back to work. You return to your station. Mistress Blight walks past. She glances at your pile, nods once, keeps walking. You feel a flutter in your chest, a nod. That's basically a knighthood in laundry world. You straighten your back, proud and deeply damp. The fire crackles, the sheets drip, and the cauldron hisses like it knows all your secrets. You keep scrubbing, because tomorrow's laundry has already arrived. The queen hasn't seen your face, but she's seen your stitches. She's slept in your seams. She's worn your pressings. She's paraded through entire diplomatic negotiations in robes you bleached while singing to keep yourself awake. And if even a single crease dares to appear, oh, you'll hear about it. Not from Her Majesty directly, of course. No, that would be far too humane. She has people for that. Long-legged ladies with perfect posture and eyes like disappointed falcons. They deliver notes, cold ones, folded with a kind of passive aggression only royalty can afford. You once got a note that read simply, "Reconsider your method." That was it. No signature. Just the crushing weight of implied failure wrapped in wax-sealed parchment. You didn't sleep that night, mostly because you had to rewash 6 handkerchiefs you didn't even know you had mishandled. The Queen's standards are legendary. If it touches her skin, it must smell of rosewater, feel like breath, and be starched with the firmness of a royal decree, but never too stiff, unless she's angry, in which case she likes her collars sharp enough to draw blood. Historians still argue whether this level of sartorial exactness was meant to intimidate foreign dignitaries or just to ruin your afternoon. So here you are, at the pressing table, which is a generous name for a scorched plank balanced on 2 wobbly barrels. You iron not with electricity, of course, but with a lump of hot metal heated over a fire. It holds heat, about as well as a teacup in a thunderstorm. Your pressing cloth is cleanish. The linen under your iron is damp from misting. Your shoulders are tensed, like you're defusing a bomb, because ironing royal garments is less of a chore and more of a spiritual test. Too slow, and the fabric re-wrinkles. Too fast, and the fibers warp. Too hard, and you leave a crease that will haunt you like unpaid debts. And too soft? Well then, what are you even doing here? The Queen's ceremonial undergown, yes, that's a real thing, requires a precise pleat pattern known only to 3 people. You, Mistress Blight, and some long-dead seamstress, whose ghost probably still wanders the laundry hall, correcting people. You run the iron down the seam, slow, steady. You hold your breath like you're making lace with lava. Behind you, someone sneezes. You flinch. The iron slips. Not disastrously, just slightly. A half-inch detour, enough to create a microscopic line where no line should be. You freeze, staring at it. Agnes, who somehow sees everything without looking, whispers. She'll know. You blot the fabric. You try again. You smooth. You pray to Saint Hannah. You threaten the iron under your breath. You offer your future firstborn in exchange for this line disappearing. The crease stays, like guilt. You finish pressing anyway. Maybe, just maybe, it'll go unnoticed. Hint, it won't. Next is folding, which sounds easy until you've tried folding 30 feet of velvet without creasing it, tearing it, or touching it with anything that smells remotely human. You hold the edge. Marjorie holds the other. You both shuffle toward each other, like reluctant dancers in a pageant no one wants to win. You fold once, twice, then wrap the bundle in tissue paper made from imported pulp, delivered monthly at great expense, just to avoid offending Her Majesty's nostrils. The garment goes into the lacquered trunk, labeled, logged, blessed, possibly wept over. Then comes the checklist. You and Mistress Blight go over it line by line. Tunics, chemises, petticoats, headpieces. Each item cross-checked against a chart that looks less like a laundry log and more like a battle plan. Any missing items must be accounted for. Where's the lace collar with the daisy edging? Mistress Blight asks, without looking up. Your stomach tightens. It was there. You saw it this morning. You scramble. You dig through piles. You check under the pressing table. Under Agnes, just to be safe. And then, miracle of miracles, it's in the folding basket. Crumpled. Wet. You forgot it. You are about to meet your doom by damp lace. But then you act. You ring. You blot. You sprint to the fire. You wave it near the coals like a frantic moth. You iron it with shaking hands. It steams. It sizzles. It flattens. You finish just in time to slide it into the trunk. As Mistress Blight reaches for the next item, she doesn't notice. Or maybe she does. Maybe she's letting it go. Just this once. Either way, you live. You exhale. And promptly get a splinter from the trunk lid. Because of course you do. By now, the Queen's afternoon wardrobe has been processed. But don't relax. Never relax. Dinner is in 4 hours. And dinner means spills, which means more laundry. You're already making mental space in your night for another round of scalds and starching. You stretch your back. It cracks. Your knuckles pop like damp firewood. You look down at your hands, wrinkled, raw, a little pinker than yesterday. You could sculpt a statue out of soap with the muscle memory you've built. And still, you're not done. The Queen expects perfection. And you deliver it. At least, most of the time. The laundry never ends. You used to think it did. Back when you were younger and still held onto the radical belief that days had edges. That work would someday be done. That there'd be a moment to sit with both socks on, drinking something warm, not boiling, and maybe even breathing air that didn't smell like moist linen. Hilarious. Today's trunk is nearly empty, only 4 garments left, but your joy is premature, because just as you reach for the final petticoat, there it is, the cart. You hear it before you see it, creaking wheels, uneven wood clattering like a dying maraca, and the telltale clink of bronze garment pins jostling together in a sack of doom. The delivery boy appears in the doorway like a prophet of despair. He's 12, missing a shoe, and whistling. More from upstairs, he chirps, dropping a pile that could crush a modest mule. Supper fitting ended early. You do not scream. You are a professional. You simply nod. quietly cursing whatever aristocratic elbow dribbled red wine across 7 layers of imported Italian lace. The pile lands with a whoomph that sounds vaguely like a laugh. You stare at it, marveling at how laundry seems to breed when left unsupervised. Historians still argue whether royal laundries had official quotas or if garments simply multiplied out of sheer disdain for commoners. You start sorting. It's a strange intimacy being the laundress. You touch everything, every inner sleeve, every embroidered lining, every tiny stitch in garments that the queen wears without thought. You know her better than she thinks. You know she favors blue when she's anxious, that she sweats through the underarms of state robes more during peace talks than war councils, that she stains her cuffs when she eats pears. You've never spoken to her, but her habits live in your hands. You sigh and plunge your fingers into the next bundle. It's damp, which is alarming. You lift a dress, gold brocade stiff and heavy, and discover a corset beneath it that's still warm, as if removed moments ago in a royal rush. Lovely. You strip the layers apart like forensic fabric work. There's a smudge on the bodice. Lip rouge, maybe, or strawberries. The queen denies eating strawberries. You suspect a lie. Agnes leans over. Late dinner party? Or very enthusiastic lunch, you mutter. You set aside the corset. Delicate, boned with whale baleen, lace tighter than a secret. You'll have to steam the ribbons later. They curl in on themselves like angry worms. Next, underthings. You pick up a chemise, soft as breath, monogrammed in tiny gold thread. It smells faintly of rosewater and existential dread. You scrub. It suds. The lace at the collar catches on your fingernail, pulling loose. You wince. You knew you needed to file that. One snag, one tear, and Mistress Blight might decide you're unfit for silk and assign you to scouring the royal dog's paw mittens. Yes, that's a real thing. No, you do not want that job. You move faster now. It's late afternoon. The light outside is shifting. The sun is giving up. You envy it. You toss damp towels over drying lines strung like spider webs above the hearth. The air is thick, and your apron feels twice as heavy. Your feet throb. You stopped feeling your pinky toe around noon. Marjorie lets out a wheeze laugh behind you. Still 3 gowns in the corner. You don't turn. You just close your eyes. Briefly. Like a blink. But longer. 3 gowns. Of course. You go to them. They sit draped on a bench like judgmental ghosts. All pale pastels. You hate pastels. They stain if you breathe near them. One of them is dotted with seed pearls that catch on everything, including your patience. You begin again. Wash, wring, blot, whisper prayers. Outside, a bell tolls. 6 o'clock. Somewhere, upstairs, the queen is getting dressed for supper. Her servants are laying out gowns. She's sipping something floral, maybe twirling a ring, maybe complaining that the hem of her favorite nightgown smelled too much like linen, which is wild, because it is linen. But perception is reality when you wear a crown. You finish the 3rd gown just as the fire sputters. You grab a coal fork and prod the embers. Sparks rise. The flames return, weak but persistent. You know the feeling. In the corner, Alice has fallen asleep against a pile of napkins. Her head bobs like a poorly balanced pear. You don't wake her. 5 minutes of sleep isn't theft, it's survival. You hang the last gown gently on the drying rack reserved for formal wear, which is a joke because everything the queen owns is formal. Even her underthings have better posture than most humans. You sit for a second on the edge of the folding bench. Your back protests, your knees pop. You close your eyes, not to rest, but to remember you exist. And then, predictably, Mistress Blight appears. "Dinner gowns due by morning," she says. You nod. She walks away. You don't cry. Because what's the point? You still have soap under your fingernails. Your shift is stuck to your thighs. Your hands ache. And 3 more layers of work are whispering from the basket beside you. But you live here now, among the folds, among the gowns, among the never-ending, ever-demanding, ceaselessly judged fabric of a woman you'll never meet, but who holds your fate in every seam. By now, your skin smells permanently of lye and boiled socks. It clings to you, this scent, a ghostly fog of human effort and low-budget perfume. It's in your hair, in your sleeves, in your dreams. You tried once to scrub it out with rosewater and crushed mint. The result was something between a wilted salad and mild chemical warfare. So now you embrace it. Oh, the washerwoman. Bold, earthy, slight notes of despair. Your fingers are raw. Your nails, those that haven't chipped entirely, are ridged like beetle shells. Every time you flex your hands, your joints mutter things like, "We used to hold books." But none of that matters now, because it's time for the ceremonial rinse. You carry the queen's freshly washed undergowns out to the rinse trough, a long stone basin filled with rainwater and melted ice, topped with floating debris and the occasional bug doing laps. You fish out a beetle. It glares at you, offended. You wish it well. The water is icy, not cold, icy. You grit your teeth and plunge the gowns in. They float like ghosts, their lace tendrils trailing through the water like accusation. You rinse with care. You do not twist. You do not wring. You do not dare even wrinkle the pleats that took you an hour to steam into submission. You just press, lift, rinse, repeat. All the while, the cold creeps up your arms, numbing your forearms, your elbows, your soul. A gentle breeze brushes through the courtyard. Lovely, if you're a flag. Murderous, if you're elbow deep in water that could qualify as glacier runoff. You suppress a shiver. Shivering, after all, is inefficient. Alice wanders past you with a basket of hand towels, her eyes glazed, her braid unraveling like a rope left in the rain. "Did you hear?" she mumbles. "They spilled pomegranate wine on the queen's slippers." Of course they did. Pomegranate stains like the devil's lipstick. And those slippers are made of ivory-colored kid leather. You close your eyes for exactly 2 seconds, long enough to mentally scream. You return to rinsing. When you finally finish, your arms are red, puffy. You shake them out, flicking droplets everywhere. One lands on Agnes. She doesn't react, probably because she's busy trying to remove candle wax from a pair of linen gloves. Yes, candle wax. Because why not fall asleep during prayer and drag your royal hand through the votive tray? Makes perfect sense. You wring your apron and head to the drying rack, where everything's either still soggy or already suspiciously crisp. You pin the undergowns up, spacing them just so. Mistress Blight once deducted your bread ration for letting 2 sleeves touch during drying. "Smells mingle," she had declared, as though sleeves were known for gossiping. You take a moment. The courtyard is quiet for once. The queen is dining. The servants are scattered. The fire is crackling without immediate supervision, and for a brief, miraculous second, the world holds still. Your shoulders drop. You stretch your spine like a creaky old floorboard. You almost believe you're alone. But then you smell it. Lye, wet wool, something faintly scorched. It's you. The realization is immediate and irreversible. You smell terrible. You lift your arm and sniff. It's a bouquet of burnt soap with a top note of regret. You used to care. You really did. You once tried drying sprigs of lavender in your apron. They caught fire. It was a whole thing. Now, you just hope you don't smell so awful that the Queen's cat, Her Majesty's prized Blue Point monstrosity, named Lady Wiggins, hisses when you walk by. Again. Historians still argue whether medieval washerwomen had dedicated uniforms or just wore whatever wasn't actively combusting. In your case, it's both. You wore this apron yesterday and the day before. It is stiff in places, soft in others, and has taken on the emotional texture of someone who's seen too much. But you soldier on. Back inside, you begin folding the table linens. Crisp corners, symmetrical folds, exactly 5 fingers width when laid out. You once got yelled at for folding a napkin with the Queen's crest facing inward. Her Majesty's emblem does not hide. Right, noted. As you fold, the smell of tonight's roast drifts down from the kitchen windows. Your stomach growls so loudly it startles a cat. You haven't eaten since dawn. A crust of bread and a half scoop of stewed lentils that were mostly water and one questionable beet. You think about that beet now with longing. Marjorie passes you a heel of bread. She doesn't speak. You nod, grateful. It's slightly moldy. You nibble around the edge and feel very much like a mouse in a gown. You chew slowly. You don't want it to end. Agnes snorts. Fancy meal for a washer. You raise your eyebrow. Better than rabbit fur and regret. She grins. That's as close to affection as you two get. The day winds down, but not you, because the Queen's morning robes need fluffing, which is a thing. It involves shaking the fabric until it puffs up like a pastry, and you have to do it gently, lest the embroidery unravel like your patience. You grab the robe, hold it up, shake, shake again. It flutters. It almost looks like it did this morning. You feel a tiny glimmer of pride. Then a beetle falls out of the sleeve. It lands on your foot. You stare at it. It stares back. You do not scream. Instead, you look up at the stars appearing through the window's high slats. One by one, they emerge, soft pinpricks against a soot-stained sky. You breathe. You're tired. You stink. And yet, you did it. The Queen will wake up tomorrow, refreshed, robed, perfumed, gliding across marble floors, and she'll never once think of the woman who stood ankle-deep in soap, scrubbing dignity into her linens. But that's fine. You know, and you're still standing. It's dark now. Not just sun has set dark, but the kind of inky full-bodied blackness that creeps in through the cracks and settles behind your eyes. The torches along the outer walls flicker in protest against the damp. Your breath clouds in front of your face, like a tiny ghost looking for somewhere better to be. But you're still in the laundry hall, because linen doesn't fold itself. And the Queen, she's still awake. That means her gowns could return at any moment. Still warm, still damp, still full of all the elegance and treachery of a 1,000-course meal. You think you're done. You're not. A door creaks open. The night courier enters. A boy in blue velvet who walks like his shoes are too expensive for this floor. He places a sealed bundle on the table and disappears again, leaving behind the faint scent of cloves, wine, and someone else's problem. You open it. It's a napkin. Just one. Square. Cream-colored. Folded improperly, which is probably why it's here. But then you see it. The stain. Small, deep crimson. Right at the corner, where the Queen's monogram curls into a dainty Q. You freeze. That is not wine. And it's definitely not beet juice. It's blood. You've seen it before. On underthings, on sleeves, on the occasional elbow wrap. but never so deliberately placed, never sent down like a message. Your pulse quickens, not out of fear, but curiosity, because in this castle, everything means something, especially stains. You hold the napkin to the firelight. The thread along the edge is slightly torn, like it's been twisted. A signal? A warning? An accident? Historians still argue whether laundresses were ever used as informal spies. If not officially, then certainly informally, because nothing escapes the laundry. Not silk, not shame, and definitely not the occasional questionable mark. You toss the napkin in the rinse basin and move on, because whatever it was, it isn't yours. It's your job to erase it, not to understand it. Still, as you scrub, you can't help but wonder. A paper cut? A quarrel? A failed attempt to slip something sharp into a sleeve? You've heard whispers in the folding room. A chambermaid saw the queen slap a lady in waiting last week. A butler claimed the royal dog bit a visitor. A page swears the queen hasn't eaten in 3 days, only drinks spiced wine and stares out windows. None of that concerns you, unless it bleeds. And then, unfortunately, it's laundry. You wring the napkin. You pat it dry. You fold it into the precise swan shape required for all light refreshments. You place it on the silver tray that will go back upstairs before dawn. It's ready, clean, blank, like nothing ever happened. You wish you could do the same to yourself. Behind you, Marjorie is humming. It's tuneless, but familiar. The kind of song that has no beginning and no end. Just like your shift, you hum along. Agnes snores in the corner. Alice has curled up under the drying rack, a blanket of clean underskirts draped over her like ironic armor. You sit for a moment. You reach into your apron pocket and pull out the best part of your day, a spoon. Not just any spoon, the spoon, your spoon, bent slightly from overuse, engraved with a single flower no one has ever been able to identify. You don't know where it came from. It showed up in the utensil pile 2 years ago, and no one claimed it, so it became yours. You eat your dinner with it every night. Tonight's feast? A crust of hard cheese and the last spoonfuls of carrot mash. Cold, of course. You cradle the bowl like it's fine porcelain and let the spoon do its work. Every bite tastes like survival. As you eat, the door opens again. Not the velvet courier this time. Just Joan, the runner from the Queen's wardrobe chamber. She's young, freckled, too quick for her own good. She looks around, spots you, and tiptoes over. I shouldn't say this, she whispers, but her ladyship spilled wine on 2 gowns. You nod. Of course she did. Joan grins. But she told the butler to say it was just the one. You blink. That means the other one is still upstairs. Still stained. Still waiting to be noticed. Which means eventually you will be blamed. You sigh. Thanks for the warning. She shrugs. Better you than me. Then she's gone, vanishing into the night like gossip in a gust of wind. You scrape the last bit of mash from the bowl and tuck your spoon away. Time to finish folding. You reach for a towel, warm, freshly pressed, the Queen's initials stitched at the corner in blue thread. You fold once, twice, smooth the edge. Repeat. Your hands know the rhythm. Your body follows it like a prayer. Fold, press, stack. Again and again until you've built a tower of quiet, obedient fabric, ready to serve. Just like you, it's almost midnight. The torches are down to nubs. The fire is a whisper. And still, the air smells like soap and steam and something you can't quite name. Maybe loyalty. Maybe sacrifice. Maybe just wet linen. Either way, it's home. You stretch your arms. You crack your knuckles. You lean your head back and stare at the ceiling, where the shadows flicker like old ghosts too tired to haunt. You think about the napkin. You think about the blood. You think about how the queen's secrets always find their way to you through sleeves, through lace, through laundry. And you smile because in a world built on silence, you know everything. And no one even sees you. The ringer doesn't care about your hopes. It sits in the corner like some medieval torture device designed by someone who thought thumbscrews were too subtle. Two heavy wooden rollers, turned by a crank that groans with the weight of your regret. You'd call it the beast, but that name is already taken by Agnes after too much boiled cabbage. You're on ringer duty today. Congratulations. Your task: feed the queen's bath linens through the rollers one by one, without crumpling them, stretching them, or, God forbid, leaving a mark. The towels are thick, ivory colored, and embroidered with tiny golden crowns. They're also roughly the size of sailcloth. First one goes in. You crank slowly. The rollers bite. The towel resists. The wood groans. Your wrist clicks ominously. It's like churning butter. But if the butter weighed 20 pounds and occasionally stabbed you in the hand, you once got your finger caught in the wringer. Just the tip. It turned purple for 3 days and throbbed every time the queen sneezed. Mistress Blight told you to walk it off. At least it wasn't your folding hand, she said, without breaking eye contact. You think she meant it as comfort? Maybe. The wringer is old. One of the wheels is slightly warped, which means you have to guide each towel through at an angle. One misstep, and the linen creases in a way that says, I was mauled by someone without a soul. Agnes used to be in charge of wringing until she accidentally fed Mistress Blight's handkerchief through sideways. No one ever proved intent, but the resulting wrinkle pattern looked suspiciously like a frown. You feed another towel into the rollers. The crank sticks. You twist harder. The towel catches, then lurches forward, spitting out the end like a defeated accordion. You catch it before it hits the floor. Barely. Graceful, Marjorie mutters. Go sit on a hot coal, you reply. She smiles. That's how you say good morning here. You keep turning the crank. Your bicep burns. Your elbow pulses. You wonder, idly, if the queen has ever turned a crank in her life. Unlikely. She has people who have people for that. Still, these towels must be dry before sunrise, because the queen's bath ritual is sacred. Every other morning, she soaks in a perfume tub for exactly 20 minutes. The linens must be warmed beforehand, laid out in order, folded once, never twice. And if even one corner smells of mildew, someone, you, will be summoned for a gentle correction, which involves a lecture, a long silence, and sometimes a loaf of bread being withheld. You reach for another towel, and there she is, Petra. You haven't seen her in weeks. She used to run the dye pots, quiet, methodical. Then one day, she didn't show up. You heard whispers, illness, injury, punishment. But now she's back, carrying a bucket of starch and looking like she aged 2 years and 20 days. Her eyes are hollow. Her hair's been cut. Not for fashion. She nods once at you. That's it. No words, just a nod. You nod back, because in the laundry hall, there's no time for explanations, just work. You feed the last towel through. Your hands are shaking now. Your arms ache from shoulder to fingertip, but the towels are dry, folded, stacked, ready for warming. Mistress Blight appears. She surveys the pile. Wrinkled corner, she mutters. You freeze. She picks up the top towel, smooths the hem, and sets it back down. Fixed, she says. You don't breathe until she walks away. Marjorie whispers. She's mellowing. You raise an eyebrow. She's plotting. Same thing. You chuckle. Just once. A dry little hiccup of sound that immediately disappears into the steam. Behind you, Petra slips back into the shadows. The wringer creaks in the silence. Your fingers are raw. Your muscles hum with that peculiar exhaustion that feels almost like achievement. Almost. You clean the wringer with a cloth. Oil the hinge. Check for loose pegs. Because if it breaks, the next option is wringing by hand, which sounds quaint, romantic, until you've tried it. You remember your first month? No wringer. Just bare wrists and linen ropes thicker than your will to live. By week 2, you could barely lift a fork. By week 4, you were folding napkins with your elbows. Now, though, now you and the wringer are a team. Dysfunctional, squeaky, slightly haunted, but a team nonetheless. You finish wiping it down and whisper, "Don't betray me tomorrow." It groans in response, which you take as a yes. You step back. The laundry hall is quieter now. The others are at supper or pretending to sleep. Agnes is sharpening a laundry pin. For what purpose, no one dares ask. Alice is humming something that might be a lullaby or a curse. You lean against the table and close your eyes for just a moment. You see colors behind your lids: gold thread, ivory silk, a drop of red on a napkin. The wringer clicks one final time as it cools. You smile, because you survived it again. Another round, another towel, another battle with the beast. And tomorrow, you'll do it all over again. Some people think undergarments are private. Those people don't work in royal laundry. You, on the other hand, are on what Mistress Blight calls foundation detail, which is a generous term for the intimate business of scrubbing the queen's drawers, corset linings, bust ruffles, and an alarming number of linen ties that don't seem to go anywhere logical. You start with the bloomers. Delicate white linen, monogrammed, trimmed with lace so fine it could float off in a light breeze and start a career as a cloud. These are the good bloomers, ceremonial, probably worn during state visits or particularly enthusiastic walks through the rose garden. They smell faintly of lavender and a hint of something else. You hold them up to the light and squint. Is that? Oh no, it is. Someone spilled mulberry jam, or something pretending to be mulberry jam. Right along the hem, a bold placement, aggressive even. You try not to imagine the logistics. And then there are the corsets. You have 4 on your bench today, each one molded to a shape both alarmingly narrow and questionably human, boned with baleen, laced with silk cord, lined with sweat and regret. You've heard whispers that the queen orders hers a size smaller every month to impress foreign dignitaries or herself. You peel one open. It creaks. There's a faint red stain on the lining. You hesitate. Blood? Wine? Rouge? You sniff. Definitely not wine. Possibly rouge. Possibly not. You scrub anyway, because in this job, you learn quickly. Don't guess. Just clean. The word discretion is written above the laundry door in faded paint. It's also stitched into your daily existence. You've seen everything. Corsets slashed with scissors, drawers scorched at the hem, one pair embroidered with the phrase "Fortune favors the bold" in Latin. You weren't sure whether to laugh or curtsy. And then there's the matter of personalization. The queen's underthings are labeled by day: Monday, Tuesday, court day, riding day, morning light, as if grief came in gradients. You once asked Mistress Blight what morning light meant. She said, "It means she wants to be sad, but she still expects tea." Right. Then come the ties. So many ties. Long, thin, fluttering ribbons of silk or cotton. Sometimes attached to gowns. Sometimes loose. Sometimes appearing out of nowhere, like haunted spaghetti. You've tried once to count them. You stopped at 47. Historians still debate whether some of these served structural purposes or were just there to test laundry staff. You soak them in warm rose water. You lay them flat on the pressboard. You smooth each one with a fingertip, careful not to stretch them. One snap tie, and you're answering questions about sabotage. You heard about a girl named Emmeline who folded a chemise with the shoulder ties on the inside. The queen didn't feel supported. Emmeline now works in the kitchen. As a turnip scrubber, you move on to nightgowns. Simple things. Soft. Flowing. One has lace shaped like vines. Another is plain, but marked with a single tear at the collar, likely from the brooch the queen wears to bed. You've seen it. Shaped like a moon. Sharp as heartbreak. Sometimes, the nightgowns are returned inside out. You pretend not to notice. But then, of course, there's the royal cycle. Mistress Blight doesn't talk about it. No one does. But when the queen's linens arrive in that bundle, wrapped in a special cloth, marked with a red stitch, you all know what to do. You open the packet. Inside, rags, folded precisely, damp, stained, still warm. You do not flinch. You do not comment. You soak them in sage water, per protocol. You scrub them with lye soap and soft cloth. You hang them behind the curtain by the hearth, away from sight. Not because they're shameful, but because they're powerful. Women in the castle whisper that the queen uses this time to cast judgment, that her moods turn sharp, her eyes darker, that treaties have fallen apart because someone made a joke too close to the third day. You don't know if any of that's true, but you do know that during those weeks, the lace rags arrive more frequently. And she prefers rose-scented starch. You iron them gently, fold them into thirds, and wrap them in white cloth. The delivery girl takes them back upstairs without speaking. And life goes on. Back in the laundry hall, Alice asks quietly, "Why do we even wash them if no one's supposed to talk about them?" You shrug. Because they exist. And sometimes, just existing is enough to get you in trouble. You finish the underthings just before lunch. Your hands are red. Your arms ache. Your mind is full of stains and secrets and phrases like morning light. You sit for a moment on the bench. Agnes offers you half an apple. Marjorie passes you a heel of bread. You eat in silence. Steam curls around you like lazy ghosts. Somewhere, the wringer creaks. You feel the quiet weight of what you've done. You've scrubbed away history. Wiped clean something ancient and sacred and completely ordinary. And the queen, she will put them on tomorrow and never think of you. But you'll know, you always know. Rain. Again. Of course it is. You wake to the soft, maddening plink-plink of droplets hitting the wooden eaves above your bunk. The kind of rain that doesn't pour. It clings. Misty, clammy, sneaky. Like it's trying to seep into the fabric before you even get outside. You pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders and peer out the laundry hall's side window. Every single drying line, sagging. One of them has collapsed entirely. The queen's ceremonial bath towel, embroidered with gold thread and shaped like something between a throw blanket and an ego trip, is now half submerged in a puddle. Excellent. You grab the broom, not to sweep, to whack the pole back into place. Laundry in the rain is an all-hands emergency, which is funny because the queen's hands will never be involved. You sprint into the courtyard. The rain hits your face like damp applause. You grab the bath towel first, sopping, muddy, wildly unimpressed with your efforts. You wrap it around your arms and stagger back toward shelter. It smells like goose feathers and betrayal. Inside, the air is warm but wet. The fire crackles angrily, as if it didn't approve of your morning attitude. You wring out the towel, the towel, and mutter curses into its folds. The embroidery is intact. The mud is surface level. You've dodged a scandal. Barely. Marjorie enters, soaked to the knees, carrying a string of petticoats like defeated flags. Her bun is unraveling. Her expression says, murder. It's not even real rain, she grumbles. It's sky spit. You nod in solidarity. Agnes follows behind her, holding an armful of Queen's handkerchiefs, like she's just pulled them from the belly of a whale. Half of these smell like wet ink, she says. You all pause. Again? You say. Apparently. You've seen it before. The Queen, overcome by emotion or sheer boredom, has a habit of writing letters late at night, in bed, with wine, and she doesn't blot properly. So her monogrammed handkerchiefs come back streaked in blue smudges and half-written phrases like, if he dares, and the lace is mine. Historians still argue whether these were love letters or court memos. You just know they're hard to wash. The problem now is drying. Nothing dries in this weather. The fire helps, sure, but space is limited. You can hang perhaps 10 garments around it before things get crispy. You learned that the hard way when a nightgown caught a spark last month. You beat it out with your apron. The Queen never noticed, but the scorch mark looked exactly like a lion's head. Alice still swears it was a sign. You resort to creative drying. You lay petticoats across chairs, pin corsets to ceiling beams. You even, out of sheer desperation, drape a chemise over your own back while you press towels. Living laundry rack, Agnes quips. At least I'm warm, you mutter. And then the worst happens. The door creaks open. Joan, the wardrobe runner, pokes her head in, cheeks flushed from the cold. She wants the ivory gown by supper. Silence. You all freeze. Ivory, gown, supper, in the rain. This is not a dress. This is a monster. 3 layers of silk, 2 veils. A train so long it's been named. Sir Whispermere. You're not kidding. You glance at the pile where the gown sits, folded, hidden like a cursed object in a folktale. It's clean. It's pressed. But it's still damp. And it cannot be even slightly damp when worn. Why? Because silk, when damp, clings in all the wrong places. One wrong move, and the Queen's stately descent into the banquet becomes a slapstick performance starring static and regret. You grab the gown. Lay it near the fire, not too near. You rotate it every 7 minutes. You fan it with a cutting board. You even whisper to it. Dry, you slippery demon, you say, become worthy. Alice, passing by with tea towels, nods solemnly. We believe in you. The silk begins to lose its sheen, in a good way. The cling fades. The hem floats just a little. It's working. You blow gently on the veil. Marjorie brings you hot water for steam. Agnes lights a second fire brick. This is a full team operation, and somehow, miraculously, it dries. You fold it, wrap it, lay it in the Queen's trunk. When Joan returns, she opens the trunk and lifts the veil with her pinky and a frown. It'll do, she says. You exhale so hard you go cross-eyed. Rain still pours outside. The drying lines sag lower. A towel falls again. But you've survived the impossible. You saved Sir Whispermere from moisture, and no one even screamed. Well, except Agnes. But she stepped on a hot coal. That hardly counts. The stars are out. Or they would be if the clouds hadn't staged a permanent sit-in across the sky. It's late. The fire's down to red glow and sighs. The others have slipped off. Some to bed, some to other chores, some just to sit in corners and remember who they are. But not you, because you've been chosen for the night shift. A quiet honor, a cursed gift. Night washing. You thought, perhaps, that laundry ended when the sun did. A charming myth like leisure or clean royal politics. But no, because royal lace doesn't stop getting dirty. Wine spills, Candle soot smudges. Mysterious stains appear on sleeves like ghost fingerprints. And someone has to wash it all before morning. That someone is you. You're alone with the basins now, and the silence. It's different at night. The air hangs heavy. The steam doesn't rise, it lurks. Your footsteps echo more. Even your breath feels louder, as though the laundry hall itself is listening, disapproving. You light a lantern. The glow cuts through the mist, catching motes of lint drifting in slow circles, like tiny ghosts of garments past. You lay out the pile. 4 lace sleeves, 2 silk cuffs, 1 ceremonial dinner napkin that smells like sardines and grief. You don't ask. You just soak. The water is cold, always cold at night, as if darkness itself seeps into the basin. You rub your hands together. You start scrubbing. You hum just to break the silence. A lullaby your mother used to sing, something about wheat fields and goats. No one's around to judge your pitch. The first lace cuff comes clean easily. The second does not. It has a smudge, dark, sharp-edged, possibly ink, possibly blood, possibly the queen's infamous pomegranate paste she claims is for the skin. You scrub gently, coaxing the stain out like a secret. Your fingers ache. You shift on the stool, joints crackling like old twigs, and then a creak from the door. You freeze. You listen. Nothing. Probably the wind. You go back to scrubbing, and then, again, the creak. A soft scuff, like slippers on stone. You hold your breath. The door opens a sliver. A figure appears. You recognize the outline. Thin, frazzled. Joan. She steps inside quickly, closes the door behind her. She looks rattled. I shouldn't be here, she says. You blink. You usually bring things to me. She clutches a bundle, small, tight, tied in gray cloth. She sets it on the table. Her eyes don't meet yours. Wash these, quietly. You don't ask. You just nod. She leaves without another word. You wait until the door clicks shut, then untie the cloth. Inside, a pair of underthings, not the queen's. Plainer, worn, but neatly folded. You recognize the stitching. Not royal, noble, not someone from the kitchen. This belongs to a lady in waiting. And the stain? Obvious. A smudge of lipstick on the inner thigh. You pause. Not because you're scandalized. You've seen far worse. But because this particular color, crimson, with a shimmer, was discontinued last year. Only the queen still has access to it. Historians still argue whether queens shared cosmetics with their ladies or hoarded them like dragons. You gently rinse the cloth. The water turns pink. You keep your face neutral. Your mind, less so. Affairs aren't new. Secrets pass through the laundry hall like socks through the wringer. Someone's always sneaking, always covering, always whispering through ruffles. But this is fresh. This is now. You press the fabric clean, dry it with warm cloth, refold it exactly as you found it. You tie it back in the gray cloth, set it aside, and you say nothing. Because laundry doesn't talk. Laundry listens. The fire crackles low behind you. Somewhere in the back of the hall, a mouse scurries. You don't chase it. If it doesn't eat silk, it's allowed to live. You go back to your pile, scrub, rinse, blot, repeat. By the time you finish, your fingers are numb. You hang the lace sleeves on the small indoor line, reserved for night garments and unspeakable items. They drip quietly, like secrets. You pour out the water, wipe the bench, snuff the lantern, and for a moment, just a breath, you let yourself sit still. Not as a washerwoman, but just you. Tired, quiet, wrapped in steam and midnight and soft whispers in silk. You stand, stretch. You turn back to the table to retrieve your spoon, and it's gone. You blink. Check again. Gone. The others are asleep. The room is empty. And yet, you smile. Because sometimes the laundry takes things, little things, just to remind you who's in charge. There are things no one warns you about, like the blood, or the smell, or the silence that follows when someone places a bundle in your hands and says only, "You'll know what to do. You've been assigned to the Queen's personal cloths today." That's the official term. What it means: the linens used during her monthly courses, menstruation, the unspoken rhythm of royal biology. The Queen does not discuss it. She does not acknowledge it. But the linen arrives quietly, discreetly, in bundles wrapped in soft wool and tied with gray-blue ribbon. Always gray-blue. You unfold the bundle. Inside, 6 rags, all linen, 2 with lace trim, 1 monogrammed, 3 with visible stains, rust red, drying at the edges, 1 so fresh it sticks a little. You don't flinch. This isn't new. You've handled worse. You've handled everything. You soak them in sage tea, Mistress Blight's own recipe. Sage for scent, marjoram for softness, vinegar for purity. The water turns cloudy almost immediately. The smell is metallic, earthy, like rust and rosemary. You press the cloth with your palms gently, like it might break. You never scrub. That's not the way. These linens are more fragile than pride, and they must be preserved, cleaned without damage, folded without commentary. You remember your first time. The rag had been left too long. The smell had turned. You'd gagged, not from disgust, but from fear. Fear of getting it wrong, of showing weakness, of failing at something even the Queen couldn't control. Agnes saw your face and handed you a peppermint leaf. "Bite down," she said. You did. It helped. Now you don't react. You wash, rinse, and lay the cloths flat on a clean pressing towel, hands moving in calm repetition. Alice watches from across the room. She's new, eyes wide, nose wrinkled. "Is it always like this?" she whispers. You nod. "But isn't it—" "What?" you ask. She shrugs. "Royal?" You raise an eyebrow. "Still human." Historians still argue whether queens of the era used cloth, wool, or sponge soaked in wine. You don't care. You care that the cloths come back bloodied, folded, and silent. You pat one dry. The lace is still intact. You imagine the Queen, sitting on her throne, smiling slightly, layers of velvet around her, pretending nothing is happening under it all, and you, down here, knowing exactly what is. The second cloth has a small tear. Too old, too used. You set it aside for patching. You patch these cloths by hand. No one else will. No one else can. The Queen doesn't know your name, but she has worn your stitches. You mend the tear with matching thread. Small, precise loops. No one must ever see the repair. You iron gently, using the smallest iron, the one with the smooth handle and heart-shaped base. You dab lavender water on the edge. Just a hint. Not enough to perfume. Just enough to say, this was done with care. Behind you, Agnes folds tablecloths. "Still bleeding?" she says casually. You nod. "She's on day 3, you add. Agnes grunts. Figures. "What?" "Yesterday's supper menu had extra figs." You pause, and then you laugh. Because yes, of course. Figs. The castle cooks always overdo figs when the Queen's in her monthly trial, as if fruit might soften the edge of royal mood swings. You finish folding. You wrap the cloths in fresh muslin, tie them with the same gray-blue ribbon, slide them into the return basket. No words, no note, just folded, pressed, ready. Later that day, a new bundle will arrive, and you'll repeat this dance. You'll scrub out the secrets of a woman who pretends not to bleed. You'll whisper to lace that's seen more truth than most ministers, and you'll do it without hesitation, Because if you don't, who will? As you tidy the table, your eye catches the patchwork cloth again. You hold it for a moment. Feel the texture of the weave, the story in every thread, and you smile. Not because it's pretty, not because it's done, but because you were there. You bore witness to something real, and no one even knows. You open the storeroom door and are immediately greeted by the unmistakable scent of doom. It hits you in waves: old lye, burnt starch, spoiled tallow, mildew, and something that can only be described as fermented towel. Welcome to the soap room, or, as you've come to know it, the dungeon of hygiene. It was once a root cellar. Now it holds soap, starch, and the occasional terrifying surprise. You step carefully. The floor is uneven, sloped for drainage, or maybe just slumped from despair. Crates line the walls, each marked with chalk symbols. You stop pretending to understand. You once tried to organize the place. Mistress Blight called it chaos with initiative. You took that as a compliment. In the back corner, the soap barrel. Huge, round, dubiously sentient. It's where the lie cakes live. You reach in, pull one out. It's sticky, warm, the color of aged cheese, smells like regret. You scrape it against your palm. The surface crackles. Bits fall to the floor. Something beneath them moves. You jump. A rat? No. Worse. A centipede the size of a belt wriggles under the straw. You do not scream. You simply back away and grab the second best soap cake instead. Historians still debate how medieval soap was standardized. It wasn't. It was improvised, terrifying, and often made from pig fat and ash with a hint of floral optimism. You mix the lye into the basin and stir. The stench rises immediately. Agnes enters behind you, holding a sack of crushed lavender. She dumps it in without ceremony. Let the royal backside smell pleasant, she mutters. You stir harder. The mixture fizzes. Foam creeps up the edge of the bucket, like it's trying to make a break for it. Agnes starts ladling it into the soap molds, wooden trays carved by someone with more enthusiasm than symmetry. She pours too quickly. The foam splashes onto her apron. She doesn't flinch. She's been burned before. You set the molds aside to cool and check the starch barrel. It's low. Again. Which means someone's been stealing. Again. Likely Petra. Petra thinks no one notices, but her towels are suspiciously crisp. You write a mental note. Investigate starch theft without sounding like a traitor. You ladle the last of the soap into the laundry bucket, and then the worst happens. You reach for the linen stack on the bottom shelf and find it swarming. Maggots. Tiny, squirming, pale white horror stories wriggling through what used to be clean folded cloth. You recoil. Blight's gonna scream, you whisper. Agnes leans over. Tell her the rats did it. They did. She'll still blame you. Fair. You grab a torch. Carefully lift the linen and toss the top 2 layers into the fire pit outside. You'll say they were accidentally starched with lamp oil. It's half true. You salvage what you can, shake out the rest. Sprinkle salt around the shelf. Mistress Blight swears it works. You're not convinced, but it feels productive. Then you clean the shelf. By hand. With vinegar water and a rage that could power a windmill. 30 minutes later, your arms are soaked, your apron's ruined, and the storeroom smells only faintly of despair. Progress. You find a surprise behind one of the baskets. A crushed sachet of mint, wrapped in cloth. You unwrap it slowly. Inside, a silver spoon. Your spoon, the one that disappeared 3 nights ago. You hold it like a relic, like a victory. How it got here, you'll never know. You wipe it clean, tuck it back into your apron pocket, like it never left. As you turn to leave, you glance back at the soap molds. They're setting nicely. No bubbles, no cracks, no centipedes. A rare success. You take a breath. The air still smells faintly of starch and rodent, but beneath that, soap. Real soap. Soft. Fresh. Clean. A miracle. You return to the washroom with the new soap and a little more faith in the world, then trip over a mop bucket and nearly die. Because balance is everything. You didn't choose laundry life, it chose you. But once a month, you remember why you almost didn't survive the first week. Inspection day. Today is that day. It arrives with no warning. Just the sound of heavy boots, a hushed ripple through the staff halls, and someone whispering, "She's coming." Not the queen. Worse. The royal dresser. Her name is Lady Fernley. She smells like peppermints and judgment and walks like she invented both. She appears in the doorway with an entourage of assistants, 5 precisely, each holding a garment bag, a clipboard, or a tiny brush made specifically for spotting lint that doesn't exist. You stand straight. You try to hide the soap under your nails. You fail. "Morning," she says. It's not a greeting. It's a threat. She sweeps into the laundry hall like a duchess at a barn raising, silk skirts whispering disapproval at every hanging towel. Her eyes scan the room. They settle on you. "You're the one folding the underthings now?" You nod. "Fine." She doesn't say it like a compliment. She heads straight for the queen's undergown drawer, a cedar chest so aggressively polished it reflects your shame back at you. She opens it. She inspects. She sniffs a handkerchief. She tugs a petticoat sleeve between 2 fingers, holding it up to the light like she's consulting it for spiritual guidance. "Who pressed this?" she asks. "Me," you say, without blinking. She squints, then folds it back and says, "You'll do." You're not sure if you've been knighted or insulted. Historians still argue whether royal dressers held more power than some nobles. You don't argue. You know the truth. Lady Fernley could end your life with a poorly phrased suggestion to the queen about creased linen. She moves on to the gown trunks. She opens a red velvet piece, slides her hand along the train, stops suddenly. "This hem is fraying." You step forward. That's the gown the queen wore to the garden banquet. It dragged through gravel. Lady Fernley raises an eyebrow. "Then don't let it happen again." You nod like that's possible. She inspects the ceremonial gloves next. They pass. So do the lace garters. The third corset gets a pause. She frowns. "This one smells earthy." You freeze. That could mean 1,000 things. Damp drying conditions, soap imbalance. Someone stored it near Marjorie's boots. You rack your brain. But then she sets it down, says nothing, and moves on. Agnes exhales so hard you expect a window to fog. The assistants scribble notes. One makes a small sound of surprise and pulls a string of royal ribbon from the folding pile. It's twisted. Lady Fernley spins on you. "Did you fold this?" You did. You say so. She untwists the ribbon, lays it flat, inspects both ends. And then, she nods. "Once." "That's better." You could fall over. She glides to the end of the hall. The inspection is done. She turns. "The queen will be expecting her spring shawls by next week. Washed, pressed, lavender rinsed." Of course she will. "And tell your starch girl," she means Petra, "that the cuffs on the blue tea gown are to be rounded, not pointed." Noted. Lady Fernley leaves. Her assistants disappear behind her like obedient shadows. Silence returns. You sit down slowly. Your knees crack. You exhale. You survived. Barely. Agnes mutters, "We should hang garlic on the doors next time." Wouldn't work, you reply. She'd just inspect it. Marjorie enters with a bowl of water and says, I missed everything, didn't I? You nod. You're lucky, Agnes adds. I was scrubbing goose feathers off a curtain rod. Oh, you say. Then maybe not. The rest of the day is quieter. No one speaks above a whisper. No one misfolds anything. You repress 3 handkerchiefs just to be safe. Alice rewashes a towel that didn't even look dirty. Petra disappears entirely. But you? You sit with the corset that smelled earthy. You sniff it. It smells fine. You smile. Lady Fernley was bluffing, testing, and you passed. By morning, it'll all begin again. But for now, you allow yourself the smallest victory, a corner of soft bread, and 10 whole minutes without folding anything. Somewhere deep in the castle, the queen is dreaming in 7 layers of silk and ego. You, however, are elbow deep in woolen hose. They smell like damp sheep and misplaced ambition. You've been given the noble task of laundering the royal winter wardrobe, which has just emerged from 3 months of cedar trunk hibernation. It's all been stuffed into bags labeled "Do Not Crush," which naturally were crushed. The queen's winter garments are no joke. Velvet, wool, fur trim, gold thread embroidery so delicate you're afraid to blink near it. And heavier than most regrets, you begin with the foot garments. 6 pairs of woolen stockings, 3 silk lined, 2 with questionable stains, 1 with an entire pine needle sewn into the seam. No idea how that happened. You don't ask. You soak them in the smallest tub. The water turns gray almost instantly. You stir them with a wooden paddle, gently, as if you're brewing a potion, or maybe dismantling a scandal. The wool begins to shrink. You panic. Then remember the trick. Vinegar rinse, stretch on the frame, whisper calming thoughts. You do all 3. Breathe. You whisper to a sock. Agnes passes by and mutters, You all right? Talking to hosiery, you say. So no. Next. Petticoats. Thicker than the summer versions, quilted, padded. One of them is so large you briefly wonder if it's meant for a bed. You lift it. It fights back. You win. Barely. You scrub the lining first. Mud. Hay. A tiny piece of what appears to be a cheese rind. You try not to think about how it got there. Petra appears at your elbow. She wants the ermine cloak freshened. You pause. Ermine. That cursed thing. It's not a cloak. It's a white furred creature stitched together from the ghosts of 20 unfortunate rodents, lined with silk and regret. It gets worn once a year and spends the rest of its time judging you from its special box. You retrieve it, carefully. The fur is yellowed, dusty, smells like arrogance. You lay it flat. Run a cloth dampened with rosewater and grain alcohol along the seam. The fur responds by puffing slightly and then slumping back into melancholy. Historians still argue whether royal fur was ever washed or simply refreshed with powders. You know the truth. It was brushed, dabbed, and then prayed over. You take the softest brush, begin gently sweeping the fur. Tiny puffs of dust rise into the lantern light. Alice passes behind you. That cloak gives me the creeps. It should, you say. It costs more than the stables. You finish brushing, then wrap it in fresh muslin and tie it with the lavender cord reserved for occasional prestige items. The gloves come next. 3 pairs, all lined, all monogrammed. 1 pair is inside out. You try them on to reshape them, gently flexing your fingers, as if pretending for 1 second you live a life that involves fur-lined gloves and not chapped knuckles. They feel like dreams, silky, warm, expensive. You take them off quickly. Dangerous thoughts. Then you notice something odd. The left glove of the second pair has a tear at the wrist. Not from wear, from scissors. You know the look. A sharp, deliberate slice. Clean, not frayed. You pause. Why would someone slice a glove? Message, spite, accident. You mark it with a ribbon and set it aside for stitching. You'll mend it later. Or someone will. Possibly someone who knows more than you want to. You move on to the winter capes. One is lined with fox. One is trimmed with blue ribbon. One smells like cloves. And one is wet. You blink. It's damp. Still cold. And yet no rain outside. You sniff. It smells like the Queen's private chapel. Frankincense. Beeswax. And something musty. You glance around. No one's looking. You check the hem. Mold. Just a little. Just enough. You fetch the vinegar bucket. Mix in salt and warm water. You scrub the edge like you're convincing it not to confess. Mold's tricky. If it spreads, the entire cape will be burned. Quietly, of course, with no record. You scrub until the smell fades, then lay it flat on a fresh rack. Not too near the fire. Agnes watches silently. She knows the signs. No one saw it? She asks. No one, you say. She nods. That's enough. You finish just as the bell rings from the west tower. Evening meal. Not for you, but for someone, somewhere. You sit on the edge of the bench, pick a bit of lint from your sleeve, and exhale. The Queen will wear the ermine tonight. The stockings tomorrow. The gloves, maybe never again. But they'll be ready. Because you made them ready. One stitch, one scrub, one whispered vinegar, prayer at a time. And no one will thank you. Not really. But they'll never know what it's like to freeze in unwashed wool. And you'll never forget. There's a noise your spine makes after 17 hours of laundry work. It's not a pop. It's more of a whimper. A tiny gasp between vertebrae. Like your bones have begun quietly protesting your life choices. You've just experienced it, reaching for a stack of folded chemises on the highest shelf. You bend, straighten, and feel your entire back whisper, absolutely not. Too bad. The Queen's wardrobe doesn't fold itself. Today's chore is mostly folding, which sounds restful, right? It isn't, because royal garments aren't just folded. They're orchestrated. There's a chart, literally a parchment diagram titled The Official Folding Procedures of Her Majesty's Garments, that hangs on the laundry wall like a sacred scroll. You once asked if it could be shortened. Mistress Blight said, no, but your time here can be. So now you follow it. Every pleat, crease, and corner. Take the chemise. It must be folded with the sleeves tucked, the lace lying flat, and the monogram facing up, but not directly centered, because that's visually aggressive. Then the petticoats. You fold, smooth, fold again. Each one weighs like a soaked curtain. The brocade ones feel like punishment. You lift, balance, breathe through your teeth. Agnes passes by with a stack twice your size. Your back screaming yet? She asks. It's writing protest songs. She nods. Solidarity. You used to think laundry would make you strong, and it has, sort of. Your arms can haul 30 pounds of linens like they're throw pillows. Your hands can grip a flat iron for an hour without flinching. But your back hates you now. You sleep curled like a comma. You wake up with your spine spelling rude words. You've taken to stretching behind the drying racks when no one's watching, bending, swaying, cracking each joint like a branch before winter. It helps. A little. But nothing really cures constant semi-bending in high humidity. Petra tried hanging upside down once. Didn't help her back, but she did drop a pin in someone's tea. Now there's a rule. No aerial stretches near refreshments. You finish the folding just in time for the afternoon cart. It's late. It's always late. The delivery boy arrives with a stack of napkins, all stained. One has a fork still wrapped in it. You hand it back to him. He shrugs. Royal forgetfulness. You wonder what it's like to be so royal you don't notice you've stolen cutlery. You don't have time to dwell. The folding table is filling again. Lace collars, silk sashes, velvet hoods. You fold, you press. Your fingers ache. Your shoulders beg for mercy. At one point, you mistake a stocking for a hand towel and fold it wrong. Mistress Blight appears. She says nothing, just raises an eyebrow. You fix it. No words needed. This is how power works here. Later, you're assigned to the refolding pile, which means someone upstairs unfolded something incorrectly and now it has to be redone. You unroll a scarf. It looks like it's been strangled. You sigh. Lay it flat. Smooth it with lavender water. Press the edges gently. The fabric sighs back. Even the garments are tired. Marjorie joins you. She brings a warm brick wrapped in cloth. Sit, she says. You blink. What? Sit. Now. You're about to fall over. You sit. The brick is warm. Your spine cracks like thunder. You exhale. For 3 minutes, you sit in stillness. No folding, no hauling, just quiet. Agnes walks by. Lazy, she jokes. You lift a single finger. Touch my back, and you fold everything tomorrow. She cackles. Later, you return to the pile. The Queen's dinner napkins have arrived. All 20. Each must be folded into a swan. You hate the swan. It's a precise, infuriating fold that involves 7 steps, 2 invisible creases, and 1 philosophical surrender. You fold the first. It looks like a dying pigeon. You try again. Second one, closer. Third, acceptable. By the time you reach the 10th, your hands move automatically. Swan, swan, swan. Agnes whistles. Show off. Tell that to number 1, you say, pointing to the pigeon. She chuckles. We'll give it to the Chancellor. Eventually it's done. The table is cleared. The folding's finished. Your spine is buzzing. Your fingers twitch. You've been folding for 10 hours, and yet no one will see the folds, because by morning they'll be unfolded, wrinkled, redone. That's the curse of perfect work. It vanishes. But you'll do it again. Because when the Queen glides into the hall in a gown that drapes just so, when she lifts a napkin shaped like grace itself, it's your hands that made that moment, even if your back never forgives you. You can smell the festival before you hear it. Roasted meats, melted tallow, spilled mead, and something faintly fruity that's either pears or pipe smoke. The castle is buzzing. Trumpets, footmen, highborns arriving in 2s and 3s like very well-dressed geese. You're elbow deep in celebratory linens, which is a polite way of saying everything is filthy, and you're about to cry into a heap of wine-drenched napkins. Festival days in the castle are like plagues for laundry staff. Everyone's excited except you, because when nobles feast, they spill. When they spill, you scrub. And when the Queen attends a festival, it's a laundry apocalypse. You've already received the first wave. 5 gowns, 2 cloaks, a scattering of sashes, a silk fan somehow sticky with honey. You're not asking. Agnes is handling the outerwear. She's muttering curses in 3 languages. Petra is on napkin duty. The stains range from pinkish red, cherry glaze, to deep brown, possibly despair. Her expression is locked somewhere between fury and awe. Did someone use this to stomp grapes? She asks, holding up a crumpled tablecloth. You shake your head. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to. The Queen's festival gown has arrived, folded like royalty and tied with a ribbon. You open it. It is exquisite. Golden thread, sapphire beads, layers of chiffon so fine they might float away if you sigh too hard. It also smells like poultry and perfume. Historians still debate whether noble women wore perfume to mask body odor or political tension. In this case, it's both. You soak the hem in warm lavender water. The beads clink gently like nervous teeth. Then, disaster. The water turns pink. You freeze. Something is bleeding color. You lift the edge. One bead, deep blue, is leaking dye. You grab a cloth, blot the gown, whisper a prayer, and mutter, "Why today?" Marjorie appears behind you. Spillage emergency. Chancellor's sleeves are in the laundry chute. You blink. He threw them down? Apparently tried to pet a roast pig. Things went sideways. You retrieve the sleeves. Silk, obviously. Frayed at the cuff. One has a bite mark. Human. You don't ask. Petra passes by. They're serving pear brandy in pewter cups again. Ah, that explains the stains. Back to the queen's gown. The dye bleed is spreading, slowly, insidiously. You remember Mistress Blight's trick? Lemon juice and desperation. You dab, gently. The pink fades. The fabric holds. You exhale. The festival is still in full swing above you. Laughter echoes down the stairwell. A lute plays somewhere. Someone drops a plate. You sigh. Then the second wave hits. Joan arrives with another bundle. Evening cloak. Emergency. She wants it cleaned and back upstairs before dessert. You unwrap it. It's velvet. Of course. Deep blue, lined with silver. The hem is soaked. You sniff. Mulled wine. You want to scream. Instead, you lay it flat. Blot the worst of the spill. Layer it with dry cloth. Press gently. It works. Barely. You flip it over and find glitter. Glitter. Royal glitter. You didn't even know that existed. Where would she even get glitter? You ask. Agnes says, gift from the Venetian ambassador. Is it in the wine? Wouldn't surprise me. You shake it out. Carefully. Slowly. Sparkles drift to the floor like smug snow. You hate them. By the time the cloak is dry, your fingers are stained red. Your back is locked in festival mode. Tense. Hunched. Endlessly folding. The third wave arrives. Ceremonial chair covers. Why? Who spilled what? Why is there custard involved? Petra screams softly into a towel. The fire burns low. Steam rises. The laundry hall becomes a kind of battlefield. You, Marjorie, Agnes, and Petra, each locked in silent war against a new and unexpected enemy. Jam, wax, gravy, saffron, smoke. Someone left a turkey leg in a napkin. You don't even blink anymore. You just clean. The clock strikes midnight. Joan returns. She says thank you. For the cloak. You pause. Wait. Did she say that? Actually? Joan shrugs. Sort of. She said, "It'll do." You nearly collapse. That is basically a royal hug. You finish folding the last of the chair covers, ignoring the one with a mysterious blue smear. Ink? Fruit? Noble tears? The fire's out. The others are asleep, slumped over benches and linen heaps. You sit. You take out your spoon. The glitter is still on your sleeve. You smile. It's absurd. All of it. But you survived the festival. You battled gravy and won. And tomorrow? It starts again. But tonight, for one brief blissful moment, you sparkle. There's a peculiar kind of dread in the laundry hall. It happens only a few times a year, usually when someone from upstairs remembers you exist. Today is one of those days. Because this morning, right after you scrubbed what was possibly eel ink out of a sash, Joan descended from the Queen's private quarters with a message. Her Majesty noticed the laundry. Those 6 words hit like a thunderclap wrapped in lace. Noticed. The Queen noticed. No context, no tone, just that. And now? Panic. Agnes immediately re-washes a stack of towels, Marjorie starts refolding garments that were already perfect. Petra begins starching things that have never once been starched. Even the ringer starts behaving better. Mistress Blight gathers you all. Her lips are thin. Her bun could slice marble. Her Majesty said, she begins, drawing out every syllable. The folds were crisp. Silence. You all blink. Agnes coughs. That's it? You whisper. Mistress Blight nods. She said it in a pleased tone. You feel your knees wobble. Not because of fear, because of possibility. A compliment from the Queen to the laundry staff. It's unheard of. Unprecedented. Almost illegal. Mistress Blight clears her throat. She also asked who pressed her ceremonial kerchiefs. Everyone turns to you. Your mouth goes dry. She liked them? Mistress Blight squints. She said, these will do. Agnes stage whispers, marry him immediately. Marry who? The folds, obviously. You're still stunned when Joan returns with a basket. This time, she speaks directly to you. Her Majesty requests these done by supper. The basket is lined with lavender silk. Inside, handkerchiefs, monogrammed. Real gold thread. Embroidered roses. One corner holds a tiny exquisite swan. You swallow. The important kerchiefs. You nod. And now? Now you have a problem. Because the Queen has noticed you. Which means she may continue noticing. Which means every fold must now be art. Every cent perfect. Every crease aligned with planetary movement. You begin with the embroidery kerchief. You soak it in rose water and rain. Rainwater collected specifically from the East Garden this morning. Yes, that's a thing now. You press it between two warm towels. You iron it through cheesecloth. You press the monogram last. Gently, reverently, like it might whisper secrets if you listen closely. When you're done, it looks majestic. Even Agnes nods. That's a regal square of fabric. Think she'll notice? You ask. Oh, definitely, she says, and now you're in trouble. Because here's the truth no one says aloud. Being seen is dangerous. When the Queen doesn't know you exist, you can mess up quietly. Blame humidity. Blame starch. Blame Petra. But when she knows your work, every stitch is under a magnifying glass. Still, you feel something stirring. Not pride exactly, but possibility. You do the rest of the kerchiefs with your best soap. Warmest press stone, lightest hand. You use exactly 3 sprigs of mint per fold, because more would be presumptuous. You wrap them in ivory cloth and tie them with blue ribbon. Not gray blue, royal blue. Joan picks them up. She doesn't speak, she just nods. Later, Mistress Blight pulls you aside. You've been noticed? She says. You nod. I suggest you stop being. You blink. But isn't it good? She sighs. Sits. In the Queen's world, being visible is a gift and a trap. She may elevate you, or she may tire of you. You wait. There was a laundress before you, she continues, Elspeth. Brilliant folds. One day she was asked to prepare the Queen's private bed linens. You lean forward. And? She used the wrong starch. You gasp. She was reassigned. To the scullery? To latrine water duty. Silence. Message received. You return to your bench. You fold a towel with the precision of someone balancing on the edge of royal favor. Agnes leans over. Still want to be noticed? You shrug. Maybe just on Wednesdays. You work quietly. You polish the folding board. You realign the ironing stones. And you tuck your silver spoon into your apron pocket like a talisman. Because even if the Queen forgets your name tomorrow, you'll remember this. The day the folds were seen. And it was enough. It's the little things that keep you going, like spoons and silence. And that one corner behind the drying rack where the air stays warm and nobody can see you sneaking a bite of boiled barley from your apron. Today, there's barley. Barely. It's more soup than substance, watered down, lukewarm, and suspiciously crunchy. But it's food. You cradle the bowl like treasure and sit on the low stool by the window, watching mist crawl across the courtyard like a tired ghost. You're supposed to be polishing the silver embroidery on ceremonial cuffs, but you're not, because right now, it's your 10 minutes. The spoon, your spoon, gleams faintly in your hand. You run your thumb along its curve. It's slightly bent from being tucked in your apron, still perfect. You take a slow bite, and for one rare second, nothing hurts. Your back isn't shrieking, your wrists aren't pulsing, your eyes aren't twitching from too much steam and not enough gratitude. Just you, barley, a spoon, and quiet. Until, of course, Petra drops a ladle in the soap vat and curses loud enough to wake the dead. You sigh. Breaks over. Back to work. The Queen's spring shawls have returned from light use, which means they've been worn, paraded, possibly rained on, possibly cried into, and now smell like rosewater, disappointment, and a brief encounter with a dog. You start with the palest one, woven silk, blue as a robin's egg. It has a tiny snag near the edge. You smooth it, press lightly, thread your needle. You mend it in silence. Historians don't talk much about mending. They mention sewing, embroidery, maybe tapestry. But mending, quietly fixing what shouldn't have broken, that's too ordinary to record, but not too ordinary to matter. You fold the shawl with your best grace, layer it between tissue and lavender sprigs, stack it in the Queen's private trunk, each shawl folded precisely, one finger width between corners. No overlaps, no creases. You double check, you triple check. You don't want to be remembered for a crooked shawl. Then the tea linens arrive. They smell like lemon cakes and betrayal. Petra sorts them while humming a sea shanty with new words. You don't ask. Agnes approaches you with something wrapped in muslin. Found this by the old press. You unwrap it. A bar of rose soap, handmade. Clearly not from the royal stores. It's wrapped in paper with little hearts. You blink. Where did this come from? Agnes shrugs. No idea. Smells nice though. It does. A small luxury. You break off a sliver. Rub it between your hands. For a moment your skin smells like not despair. You pocket the rest. Maybe you'll use it tomorrow. Or save it. Maybe you'll just keep it, to remind yourself there's softness in the world. You return to the tea linens. One has lipstick on it, same shade as the Queen's event color. You blot, you scrub, you wonder who she kissed or cursed. You'll never know. You press the linens, fold, stack, breathe. By now, your movements are muscle memory. You could fold royal napkins in your sleep. You often do. Literally, Marjorie once woke you folding your blanket like a banquet cloth. You didn't even deny it. Alice wanders by with a tray of new deliveries. Tomorrow's feast, she says. She's wearing the gold one. You nod. Gold is the worst. Not because of the color, but because of the thread. It snags. It tangles. It refuses to obey starch or steam, and it has opinions. But you'll fold it, like always, because that's what you do. You take thread and sweat and secrets, and you make them soft, orderly, silent. It's not glory. It's not even remembered, but it's yours. You glance at the spoon in your pocket, the soap, the mended hem, the clean shawl, hope, spoons, and a bar of soap. Some days, that's all you need. It's nearly morning. Not the gentle kind, where sunlight pours in through dewy panes and birds chirp in polite harmony. No, this is castle morning. Clanging bells, clattering boots, Roosters that scream like they've just been promoted to general. You haven't slept. You never do, not fully. You've dozed, curled in your corner, half listening for footsteps, for Mistress Blight's cough, for Petra to knock over another starch bucket. And now, the final load. It arrives with all the drama of a royal edict. Joan bursts in, breathless, holding a muslin bundle like it contains state secrets. This must be done immediately. You nod, already unwrapping. Inside, the Queen's private nightgown. Silk, ivory, soft as a whisper and twice as expensive. It's creased, damp, and smells faintly of lilies and something else. Tears? No. Wine. You smooth it out. There's a torn ribbon at the collar. You recognize it. It was intact last week. Now it dangles like a sentence left unfinished. You sew it shut. Perfectly. You dab the hem with lavender water. Press. Fold. It takes 5 minutes. And 17 hours. The nightgown goes back into its silk-lined box. You tie it closed with gold ribbon. When Joan leaves, she nods once. Approval. It lands on you like a feather and hits like a brick. Because this is the end of your day. And the start of hers. Above, the Queen is waking, stretching, yawning, sliding into the very nightgown you just folded, with no idea how many hands touched it, how many stitches were hidden, how many hours soaked into the fabric like invisible ink. But that's fine. That's the point. Laundry is erasure. You strip the story from every cloth. You scrub away the evidence of dinners, dramas, dances, and disasters. You fold silence into every pleat. And somehow, that becomes your story. Not the one they write in books, but the one that lingers in soap-slicked basins and lavender-starched hems. You sit down. Finally, just for a moment. The fire is out. The others are sleeping, dreaming of beds they don't have. You lean against the wall, spoon in hand, apron loose, eyes heavy. You survived. Again. And as the castle stirs above you, you let go. Not just of the garments, but of the weight. Because you did your part. You shaped the quiet. You made the impossible clean. And now you rest. Even just for a breath. The fire has gone still. Just glowing coals now. Quiet as your breath. The air feels softer, cooler. Like the castle is holding its breath. Just for a while. Before the next round of footsteps, orders, and spills. You rest your head back. There's no rush. The wash basins are empty. The linens are folded. The ribbons are tied. Even the wringer is quiet, wood settling into itself like old bones. Somewhere above, the Queen moves through a corridor, feet never touching the ground. But here it's just you and warmth, and a silence thick enough to sleep in. You close your eyes. Your fingers are stiff, but you don't mind. They've earned the ache. They've woven it into every crease, every perfect fold, every hidden stitch that kept a kingdom presentable. You are invisible, but essential. You are the hands that undo chaos, that scrub away whispers, that return everything to softness. And in a world full of noise and names and crowns, you are peace, warm, quiet, folded into the dark, like a linen pressed flat, waiting for morning, but not quite ready yet, so rest now. Breathe deep. You've done enough. You are enough. Sleep, washerwoman. Sleep.